All right, everybody. I'm Vincent Tseng. Joining me today is Joseph Levitas, and we're going to be starting the Kung Fu Combat online training program. Now, just to preface, this program is going to be online lessons held in English over Zoom, and we're aiming for this whole package to take about 3 months. It may go a little longer if it does. Good for you guys. And it's going to be divided into 7 modules. We're hoping that each of these modules is going to take about a week, maybe a week of 2 online lessons, sometimes 2 weeks with 3 or 4 online lessons. Again, this is over Zoom, and we're going to hopefully get everyone together, same place, same time virtually to do this. And as you might see from the pricing structure in the description, you're incentivized to bring as many friends or training partners as you can. 4 or more, flat price. So anyways, Joseph, let's get into the curriculum and how we're going to help our students here.
All right, so this is basically it's based on our combined experience of martial arts, not just Chinese martial arts, but martial arts.
Yes.
So it's designed to have martial arts enthusiasts, specifically people interested in Chinese martial arts, to have them be able to apply whatever it is they're learning in real combat situations, be it MMA or like competition or just sparring or just any combat situations, and we're not specifically like, it's not any specific area. It's just combat applications of whatever it is, because there's like a lot of the times, like right now, the traditional arts miss some of the key things to get them there. You have the it's good techniques, they're there. Sometimes they're misinterpreted, but even when they're not, there's like missing pieces there.
Yeah,
which is what we're looking to help them with. Like, for example, there's a good technique that but you can't. But when you try to apply it in freestyle sparring, you cannot do it. Why is that? Something's missing. Maybe it's the distance. Maybe you're doing it at the wrong distance. Maybe you don't have the drills to fill out the distance properly. To interact properly, to react properly. Maybe it's it's footwork. Maybe that's what's preventing you from using it. Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we get into the mid-range, close range stuff where a lot of these traditional martial arts are supposed to excel at, sometimes it's like you were saying, but it becomes the kinesthetic awareness that they're not used to, or say if it's sticky hands, push hands, they've taken that kinesthetic awareness into an overly like artificial space where it's no longer like combat. They're not getting combat responses to what they're doing. So even though technically what they're doing is good, they're trapping an arm over, they're trapping the opponent's elbow, whatever it is. They're not doing it in a timing and spacing and angulation that is realistic for fighting anymore, at least, right? And so that's definitely something that we can take our combined backgrounds to be able to help with, because we both share a Mantis boxing component to our experiences. But you've done boxing, and you've been a Nakamui doing Muay Thai, and I've been doing Shuai Jiao, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and it's put us into a striking and grappling ends of the sort of more fight sport world, right? Where some of the techniques may be simpler in a way, but the tactics and the timing, spacing, posture, angle type attributes and sense that we develop through that is pretty critical for all fighting. right? And that's what the fight sports do a good job drilling into you. So first off, we have a lesson in, I guess, stance, footwork, stability, distance. Can you get that
Right.
for us?
Right. It's basically a bunch of exercises to get you to feel the distance, to judge the distance properly. Like, how far away are you? Like, why you trying to throw a kick when it's like striking, hand striking distance, and things like that, because people get confused about that. Like,
Yes.
Then important thing is like the weight distribution, to feel comfortable on your feet, to have your feet under you when you are actually doing the techniques. It's moving in step to feel that when you are in danger, you might want to close the distance, might want to step aside, you might want to step back. When do you do that? Things like that. So it's drills, it's practical drills that are designed to get you there. So it's not any kind of magical recipe, but if you work on it, you'll start to feel when you're in a bad situation, you need to move away, or vice versa.
Right.
That type of stuff.
Right.
And then at the end of that, we're going to teach you like a little short form to get you to just train your legs, basically, so that they're stronger. They are used to this kind of movement, and basically all of martial arts are about movement. Like, if you don't have the movement, you don't really have the ability to do anything, right? So I mean, you won't be able to deliver offense or defend yourself correctly. It's like, if the movement is not there, if your movement is impaired, even if you're a good fighter, by the way, like you get your leg, injured in a fight, your fighting ability is seriously compromised. So it's the same thing, basically, right?
Absolutely. And so after they're stable, they can move, they can understand distance, timing. We've got the next topic, which is striking, essentially.
Okay. So this one, we're looking at it from 2 points, basically. First of all, how far away am I from the target, and like, what do I use there? Like, what's a good striking? What's a good technique to use there? Like, am I throwing a hook or straight or uppercut or whatever? They all have their place, sort of, within that fighting range. And with that, we have a great thing that, like, a lot of wushu styles have, is a huge variety of striking surfaces, right? Like, in boxing, we basically strike with one surface.
Right.
If you're doing, like Muay Thai, you get a couple of more, but in wushu, you have tons of striking surfaces, and they're there for a reason. They're not just like because it's cool, it's because they're designed to be used at a certain range and at a certain angle also, right? So that's what we're going to get into, and it's going to increase your vocabulary if you're a striker. Okay, you won't be able to use that in boxing. I'm gonna say that right away, because that's against the rules. Okay, but in like MMA, or like, in freestyle fighting, pancration or whatever, combat sambo maybe, you can use that, right? So and of course in just any kind of combat situation, right? So that's the next one.
All right. So after striking, and you understand offense, defense, various striking surfaces.
Oh yeah, and defending against strikes, of course. Yeah, that too. Yeah, we're going to go over that. Like, what do you use, traditional ways, and some of them overlap with like modern techniques as well. But some are quite unique, interesting.
Absolutely. So one thing that is quite emblematic of a lot of the traditional martial arts, especially around Southeast Asia, right, including traditional Chinese boxing, we get into where the arms bridge, and we have this thing that in English is called trapping, as well as holding and hitting. What kind of skills are we working there? In fact, why don't we describe what that is, especially for people who are less familiar? What is
Mhm.
trapping?
Okay, so it's basically it's clinching, it's grabbing and holding in a lot of different ways, not necessarily just holding on, but that's a big part of that too. So grabbing skills like catching and grabbing is actually a big part of that. So learning how to catch things that are coming your way, not
Mhm.
necessarily a punch, a fast punch you won't be able to catch maybe, right? But somebody trying to grab you with, that's one thing. Another thing is setting up situations where it's easy to grab,
Hmm.
right? Offensive situations where you are striking and that turns into grabbing and developing into there all kinds of fighting scenarios after that. And but that's not necessarily just grabbing with your hands. It could be trapping with your feet,
Mhm.
with using your stances that you have already learned previously, right? This is where they sort of come in, because like those low stances are not just there to train your legs, they're there to help you trap
Yes.
trap the feet,
Yes.
right? While simultaneously like delivering offense upstairs, so to speak, right? So so that's what it is basically, right? Trapping different body parts,
Right.
body, neck, arms, feet.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as we get just a little closer in range, as you know, this is a game of centimeters, of inches, of seconds, split seconds. So we get a little closer in range, we get into clinching as we normally think of it in the West, which tends to be just as you described, but closer to the body, right? Because a lot of
Mhm.
what you described with trapping on principle is the same, but you're doing it further down the limb. You're doing it shin against shin, forearm against forearm, and occasionally grabbing hold the body itself. Clinching is a lot more dedicated, where your body's almost leaning in and pressuring the other person, right? Framing up against. Uh, that's where we're starting going from grabbing people and striking into grabbing people and throwing, not just trapping and tripping, but it can be takedowns, throws, and so on. So I guess after trapping, holding, hitting, we're getting into clinch work. Now, I think you'll agree, especially with your Muay Thai background, clinching is a very powerful tool. And I think from our combined experience, we can provide a lot of traditional Chinese martial arts solutions for that range, right?
Right.
Ways to employ your elbows, knees, some of the other so-called unconventional striking surfaces at close range, but also how to start moving people into takedowns. Right.
Mhm.
And I guess that leads us straight to wrestling, where we are so close to each other, where they're binding our arms, we're binding up their arms. And now there's really not a lot of hitting you can do unless you create space again. So you're wrestling now. And that's where we'll focus at first on your wrestling stance. We'll focus on walking, footwork while under the physical pressure of somebody else. And we'll focus on creating the movement or the momentum to be able to throw, trip, or apply a takedown. Lastly, this is where I'll apply my expertise as well. Uh, After wrestling, we learn wrestling attacks. This is where we're calling trips, takedowns, throws, such as your classic hip toss, lifting, dumping, kicking out their feet, hooking out their legs, uh, grabbing their legs, so on and so forth, right? Obviously, although we're going through a progression of long, medium, and close, as you know, part of the martial arts that we practice excels in uh, moving between those, right? If we start hitting somebody, they're rushing in to try to do a takedown, then we clinch, trap, get them further out. start hitting them, start punishing them for that, they try to space out to try to make space for longer strikes, get out of that uncomfortable situation. Boom, we cinch them up close, and then we can use wrestling movements, right? And so I don't want students listening or prospective students to think that, oh, this is just a a long to short range strategy. We're actually giving you tools for each range, but we encourage you to play through all ranges, right? And
I would add to that actually, which is a big feature of traditional Chinese martial arts, is that it's trying to build a more of a body awareness in general, where it's like, okay, I'm in this situation, like you don't have time to think, but your body is supposed to react in a certain way.
Yes.
And that's the way the techniques is set up, sort of to get you to feel that, like where you are.
Absolutely. And also to get the opponent to be potentially deceived about where they are, right? Is when there's a lot of kicking and striking type techniques or combinations that throw off the opponent's sense of where they're at. There's a lot of ways of trapping, clinching, holding that maybe make them think you're further or closer than you really are, and use an attack that's hard for them to expect in that split second. So absolutely. And that gets us to our last module, which is less about the so-called basics, but is building upon it. It's traditional martial arts techniques, right? So how would you describe some of the core essence of Chinese boxing techniques as we teach them?
Okay, so number one thing would be, well, maybe it's specifically praying mantis. Perhaps it's not the same way with like Bagua or I don't know, Tai Chi or maybe Shini. I don't know, because I never done those. Like, so, but in my understanding of what I studied, it's number one thing is the pressure, applying pressure, not just rushing in, but like applying constant pressure, overwhelming the mind, basically, keeping them so busy that they don't pay attention to what you are actually doing, what you are setting up. So a lot of it is setting things up by we're doing it by pressuring them.
Absolutely.
It's not just rushing and striking, for example. It could be,
yes,
but not necessarily. It could be just footwork. Footwork sometimes can be very deceiving and can entice a person to move in a certain way that you want them to move.
Pressure, oftentimes in traditional Chinese martial arts, pressure involves a strong entry or involves sticking and holding to your opponent because it provides that physical reminder of pressure. But yeah, absolutely. There's almost like a pressure and a trap that's being set up. Set up with that. And I would absolutely agree, whether you're physically overwhelming the person or you're more psychologically overwhelming them with smart strikes, traps set up at different angles, at different ranges, overwhelming the person's psychology is incredibly important. I would absolutely agree. And I think another thing about traditional Chinese martial arts techniques that allows us to continue that pressure is to always collapse or break the posture of our opponent somehow. Their intention, their plan has to all be based on their posture, right? Whatever they're physically allowing themselves to do, we break that posture. And most Chinese martial arts will find a way to expand into the gap, so to speak, left behind. Now, that can be physically, right? I smash in and then boom, I'm in and I throw. But it can also be done, I guess, more psychologically, more subtly. Doesn't always have to be a literal, smash and enter, right? But we'll almost always expand into the gap, so to speak, and keep maintaining that pressure. What other hallmarks of traditional martial arts techniques do you think we should highlight?
Well, again, this one's derived from praying mantis. So with another very important principle is no hand returns empty, to mean that if you're striking, that's to like you said, to break the structure and fill that space with your structure, and grab onto your opponent to do something,
Yes.
and if it doesn't work, then you go from grabbing back to striking. So like it says in one of those manuscripts from 17th century, I think, where it no 18th anyway, that the praying mantis techniques flow from one to another.
Yes.
They're supposed to flow.
Yes.
And it's not in any ballet kind of sense. It's like
No.
you do one thing, and if it doesn't work, you go straight to the next thing, and then to the next thing, and so on and so forth. One technique follows out of the other technique.
Yes. And there's a mechanical aspect to this where you're accruing mechanical advantages, right? Because I just struck somebody, they're a bit stunned, and if they throw an arm out in the way and I grab it, whether they go with that or against that, they're delayed by a half second. They're by a half frame. They're still responding to whatever that is. If they're pulling away, oh, the other strike can come back in. Right. If they're going with, oh, maybe I'm tipping the other side. I'm about to trip them. Right. If they stumble over that, oh, boom, the next strike comes in. Right. And so it becomes a thing where they fall further and further behind in the tactical, psychological part of the fight. And physically, they're getting pummeled or thrown around or tripped up, and hopefully for us and our students, the fight is pretty quick and smooth after that. Yeah, so that sounds pretty awesome. I mean, we with all of this, distance management, spatial management, timing, sensitivity in terms of understanding what your opponent is doing, we definitely want our students to be paired up at least, right? I think ideally we want everyone in pairs, if not more. The more the merrier. And as we said before, pricing structure, right? One person, $100 per month, but 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, and more. Effectively, if you split it up, you're getting more and more of a discount. And what we teach isn't changing. It's just how much you can drill and practice and get out of it is going to exponentially increase. Yeah. So I'm really excited for this. This is going to be great. Combining our fight sport backgrounds with praying mantis boxing, and maybe optimizing some of these throws and takedowns from Shuaijiao. Is there anything else you think we need to impart upon our potential students?
I think it's important that they understand that this is supposed to lead to live seminars and eventually, right? So it's not like they will learn this online thing and that's it. They will master fighting. That's not going to happen, right?
No.
But they're going to get a perspective, a new perspective, even if they don't meet with us eventually. Whatever they're studying, it's going to enrich their fighting vocabulary. It's going to give them different perspective and a better understanding, perhaps, of Chinese martial arts, of traditional arts in general, right? And now, but ideally, eventually we will do a live thing where they can actually train with us and take it further.
Absolutely. In fact, our plan is to have this as the baseline. This is sort of the, you go through this training, and in the future, you are having gone through this training, ready to meet up with us. And it really depends on where most of our students are going to be. If there's a cluster in Europe or if there's a cluster in America, so on and so forth, we can travel to and accommodate hopefully later this year, right?
Yeah.
Have a fight camp and maybe a long weekend session of training through these things in greater depth and really sinking in a lot of these details, right? Because I think you and I both come from a similar experience, which is that this stuff is good. It's really good, but sometimes that those live fighting attributes, that sense of timing, distance, that sense of angle, footwork, little things that are incredibly important, are sometimes missing or not fully imparted. And I think this could benefit somebody who's just looking to start in traditional Chinese martial arts, giving them a good perspective going into it. It could be good for somebody who's been a practitioner for quite some time and says, okay, I can do certain things, but something still gets stuck. I don't understand why this works here and doesn't work there. This could definitely help a long-time practitioner and even an instructor, even somebody who is, fairly competent and teaches this stuff, but says, I have certain students that don't seem to get it, or I have certain students that don't seem to pick it up. Maybe this program can give me, and I do believe it will, a different perspective on these fighting arts that'll benefit not only themselves but also anyone else they teach, right?
Yeah,
So
I
beyond,
gotta say, if I had as we were laying this out,
yeah,
I looked at it and I was like, well, I mean, I wish I had this like 10 years ago.
yeah, absolutely.
This would definitely help me understand what I'm doing, with the arts. Yeah, this would definitely be a great shortcut.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This to me feels almost like a Chinese boxing fighting skill jumpstart kit
Mhm.
almost. You
Yeah,
jumpstart it and it's like,
exactly.
oh, okay, and everything else kind of pretty much makes sense based on this framework. Mm, yeah. Do you have any other closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Uh, no, my hope is that, we develop this into a regular thing and a lot of people get into it so that we can have eventually, not just fight camps, but maybe perhaps, competitions and things like that.
Mm,
That would be
mm.
great, for Chinese martial arts. Karate guys do it, and Muay Thai guys do it. So I'm sure we can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Muay
looking.
Thai was a very obscure art just, 40 years ago,
Yeah, yeah, and,
something
and
like that.
and arguably its cousins in Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar.
Yeah,
They're not technically very different, but again,
right.
it's the approach, it's the organization, it's providing a way for
Yeah.
people who are good fighters to become excellent fighters, world class fighters, and build a place to showcase that, right? And
Yeah,
it's
I think also Chinese martial arts have a lot to add to what is modern combat right
mhm,
now
mhm,
that has not been at part of the vocabulary for now. It's
yes,
getting like a little tiny pieces of it getting there, like what happened with like Lyoto Machida when he introduced karate and showed that it can be
yes,
applied in this format. I think
mhm,
same thing can happen with the Chinese traditional arts,
mhm,
even probably to a greater extent, because I think that they are actually even better suited for this than the other arts, perhaps, because do have the wrestling component and clinch component
yeah.
there to develop to a much uh, higher degree
I
than,
would
let's
agree. I
say,
think
Muay Thai. I love Muay Thai, but I mean,
yeah, I would say, especially coming from our background, shared background, praying mantis boxing, it's a pretty good blend of striking at different ranges as well as clinch and wrestling. And obviously you can further your striking elsewhere, you can further your wrestling elsewhere, but it forms a really good framework for approaching just fighting, mixed fighting, right?
yeah,
And that's definitely something that we want to push out there to the world. Because there's a lot of guys out there doing traditional martial arts, a lot of guys out there doing mantis boxing who are, perhaps they know it, perhaps they don't, perhaps they know and they can't quite do it all, but sitting on a treasure trove, really a treasure trove of traditional boxing, not just as in hands, but of using your whole body,
I
and
gotta say another thing is that like a lot of times right now, I hope I'm not getting a lot of people upset, but I think traditional Chinese martial arts, from my experience so far, teaching it, a lot of times attract people who are scared of fighting.
Hmm.
And they think they're gonna just do forms, and here's what I got to say. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually a lot of fun and doesn't hurt that much. So that thing with like understanding the distance and things like that can get you through it with a lot less pain.
Oh yeah.
And with a lot less damage.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, if you're one of those guys, it's okay, it's fine. Like fighting is can be intimidating, you know.
Yeah.
So, but if you understand the basics of it, like the how to move in and out, how to be safe in those situations, and things like that, like that really is the basics.
Mhm.
This definitely will be good for you.
Yes. Yes. And you know, I can't, neither of us can really profess to be some kind of like all-knowing master of
Yeah,
any of these Chinese martial arts. But if you have a good framework of understanding for fighting, and especially a framework that is tailored to traditional Chinese boxing, then you'll be able to apply it. I'm sure there are nth number of kick setups or kick defenses or striking to throwing that exists. You and I have probably seen variations of it. You and I probably do variations of it, but there's probably dozen variations, even just on stuff that we're familiar with, that exist in other styles of Mantis or other styles of Chinese boxing that we don't
sure.
do. But this dives into the framework. If you do the foundational training, Jiben Gong, as far as your physique and your conditioning, this is sort of your skills and software, 基本功, in a sense. Get
Right.
you used to timing distance, get you used to being sensitive about your weight distribution, striking, defense, trapping, clinching, wrestling, etc. Right. And I
Yeah.
think I think this will give people a good basis, and hopefully, like you said, once we build up more people with this basic fight understanding, we can work with them directly, face to face in the future, host fight camps, and even maybe in the beginning, small scale Chinese boxing focused uh, competitions.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds good.
All right.
It's yeah, we're just trying to be the change.
Yeah. Gotta be the change that you want to see. Right.
Right.
That's what it
Exactly.
is. All right. So I'm excited. I know you're excited,
Yeah.
and yeah, let's get this thing on the road, and I hope plenty of people will see for what it is and sign up. All
Awesome.
right, everybody, it's been good.